Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're exploring a truly fascinating individual, Dr. Sujit Paul, and what makes him so unbelievably compelling is the crazy duality of his daily life. I mean, on one hand, you've got this hardcore corporate CEO of a massive pharmaceutical retail chain, constantly dealing with intense, high-stakes boardroom pressures. But on the other hand, he is a dedicated spiritual regression therapist who actively works with past lives, karma, and the afterlife. It's just this wildly unique blend of the deeply mystical and the highly practical, and we're going to break down his core philosophies for you right now.
Okay, let's dive right into our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at past lives versus the spirit world, the 4 hours after death, how karma shapes rebirth, bouncing back from failure, and finally, living a guilt-free life.
All right, first up, Section 1, Past Lives versus the Spirit World.
Now, as we explore Dr. Paul's unverified spiritual framework, you really have to keep in mind that he makes a very clear distinction between his two primary practices. Past life regression, or PLR, well, that's a therapeutic tool. It's used to dig into deep-seated, present-day traumas or phobias to find their root cause in a previous life. But a spirit world journey? Totally different. That is all about guiding a patient to the specific space between death and birth. It's strictly used for positive, incredibly respectful reconnections with departed loved ones to help heal grief. He is absolutely adamant that this isn't some cheap parlor trick. It commands total respect.
But you might be wondering, how does someone actually access these memories? Well, Dr. Paul uses this fantastic, super relatable analogy. He says the soul actually holds on to everything, but as a baby grows up, the human brain just naturally filters out those massive cosmic memories so it can, function in everyday life. Through his regression techniques, he says it's literally like putting a car in reverse gear. You're intentionally driving backward through the mind's filters to access these incredibly vivid, distinct memories from completely different lifetimes.
So the crucial point is how this allegedly heals people today. He shares this one remarkable anecdote from his practice that really hit home for me. He had a patient dealing with a debilitating, lifelong fear of crossing the street. During their regression sessions, they couldn't find the cause in this life or even the one right before it. Eventually, they supposedly traced this exact phobia all the way back to a devastating, fatal road accident in the 1400s. And the craziest part? Once that 600-year-old root cause was finally brought to light, the phobia just vanished.
Moving on to Section 2, the 4 hours after death.
Based on his spiritual framework, he advises a very rapid, almost stark detachment process for a grieving family right after a loss. He outlines 3 exact steps here. First, try to avoid excessive crying. Second, attempt to dispense or cremate the body within 4 hours if at all possible. And third, quickly delete physical and digital attachments, meaning, throw away their clothes and even delete old WhatsApp chats. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why on earth would he advise something so incredibly difficult for a family that's just lost someone? Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the energetic logic behind that advice. Dr. Paul literally views intense emotional grief as a magnet. He claims that crying heavily near the body and desperately holding on to physical reminders transfers a massive amount of magnetic energy. And this energy, it effectively tethers the soul to our physical realm. It traps it right near the body when it desperately needs to be making a smooth, peaceful exit into the next phase.
Okay, let's jump into Section 3, how karma shapes rebirth.
So what happens once that soul actually manages to transition smoothly? Dr. Paul uses this incredibly powerful and honestly comforting metaphor. He states that the soul itself is completely indestructible. Moving from one life to the next is simply like changing your clothes. It's like you wore a green shirt today and you might wear a red shirt tomorrow. But the core essence of exactly who you are, that remains completely intact.
To explain how we can still connect with souls that have supposedly already been reincarnated, he introduces this fascinating concept. He calls it a scoop of soul. Think of it like sweeping a dusty room. Even after you've swept up all the dirt and left the room, a fine, almost invisible layer of dust always remains behind. Dr. Paul explains that even when a soul is fully reborn into a new physical body down here on Earth, a small energetic imprint, a little scoop, lingers in the spirit world, and that's what allows for a spiritual connection.
And this brilliantly illustrates what happens next. During this cosmic review process, he claims souls don't actually look like humans anymore. They appear as these little dots of light, which he neutrally ties straight back to Einstein's E equals mc squared, pure energy. These souls are guided by higher energy mentors to objectively review their past actions. And here's the real kicker.
He claims the soul entirely chooses its own future hardships for the sake of learning. That means your gender, your wealth, your entire social status can change completely from one life to the next, based purely on what your soul decides it needs to learn.
All right, let's pivot a bit. Section 4, bouncing back from failure.
Let's ground this mystical narrative right now, because this number is absolutely key. Dr. Paul isn't just a theorist, he is the CEO of a massive pharmaceutical retail chain with over 1,000 stores across India. So when he gives practical advice on handling intense stress, managing huge teams of people, and surviving rock-bottom failure, he's speaking with some serious credibility. His philosophy on success is incredibly gritty. He openly talks about his own brutal failures, literally losing everything, having to teach meditation just to survive, or standing in massive lines at call centers hoping for a job. For him, a good leader isn't someone who just magically never fails. Success is defined entirely by your bounce-back speed. How fast can you get up? He is so fiercely dedicated to prioritizing his life's purpose that he admits he sometimes sleeps only 2 to 4 hours a night just to ensure he always gives an absolute 100% effort to his mission.
Which brings us perfectly to our final section, Section 5, Living a Guilt-Free Life.
So how do we actually apply his cosmic energetic theories and his hardcore corporate resilience to our own everyday lives? Well, as a CEO managing thousands of people, he naturally encounters a lot of toxic situations. To survive, he practices a technique he calls neutralization. This involves creating an intentional, mental, energetic shield right around yourself. It basically allows you to work directly with difficult, highly negative people without actually absorbing their stress into your own body. It's a real game changer.
And when it comes to right and wrong, his definition of morality is highly personalized and entirely tied to energy. He states quite simply, if you do something without guilt, you are not committing a wrongdoing. He even uses this funny example to illustrate it. For one person, sitting down and eating 20 sugary rasgullas might be a terrible, guilt-ridden act of self-sabotage. But for someone else, it's a joyful, totally guilt-free experience. The ultimate metric for karma isn't necessarily the action itself, but the internal guilt you carry while doing it. And to achieve that kind of guilt-free clarity, he points to one primary tool above all else: meditation. But he gives a very strict warning here. He says people completely ruin meditation by chasing flashy, profound experiences or waiting for some grand cosmic vision. Actually, scratch that. If you go in expecting magic, you get absolutely nothing. The true, tangible benefit of daily meditation is simply cultivating extreme clarity, building a solid inner calm, and ultimately achieving a grounded life with absolute zero stress.
So to beautifully tie his cosmic concepts right back to our daily actions, according to Dr. Paul's framework, the energetic imprint you leave today dictates the entire trajectory of your next existence. So, I want you to look closely at your habits, your lingering grudges, and your everyday actions. If your next life depends purely on today's energy, are you truly living guilt-free right now? It's a wildly fascinating and provocative thought to evaluate yourself against. If you want to dive deeper into these mystical concepts or his corporate resilience strategies, I highly encourage you to check out the original source. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.